Diddy's lawyer was on CNN last night, and it sounds like they're gonna fight, and that Diddy might actually beat this case. This lawyer he's definitely advocating for his client, let's just say.
Arguing is not only does your client pose a flight risk, because obviously he's incredibly wealthy, has access to planes and a lot of staff, even though you said he turned over his passport to you months ago. They were also worried about him being able to interfere with witnesses and calling them. And so I guess the question is, how do you assure the court that that won't happen if prosecutors are saying this is someone who's attempted to bribe security staff and has already threatened and interfered with witnesses?
So I think the most important thing, even more important than the passport, is that Mr. Combs came to New York on September 5th. As soon as we realized that this indictment was going to be coming down in a matter of weeks, maybe months, but sometime soon, Mr. Combs got on a plane, left his home in Florida, flew to New York. I called the prosecutors myself. I said, Mr. Combs is in New York. Do you want to know where he is? If you want to know where he is, I'll tell you where he is, but he wants to surrender. He's here to surrender. They didn't want him to surrender, because if he surrenders, they don't get to tell the judge that he's a flight risk and he's a danger, because...
That's an interesting fact, because if he surrenders, then it takes away their opportunity to pursue the charges. It's actually a good point. If you're an innocent man, what are you gonna do? You're gonna cooperate? You're gonna be available to everything? Why would they reject him surrendering himself?
Who, as a danger and a flight risk, would fly to New York and surrender? So they didn't want him to surrender.
So since September 5th, you had known, you expected it was likely he was going to formally face charges.
So I really knew he was formally going to face charges on March 25th, the day of the searches, when Homeland Security searched his Los Angeles home, his Miami home, and his airplane. I knew that day by looking at the search warrants. I mean, I've been doing this for a while. This is not my first or 100th rodeo, that this was going to come as a matter of time. What I realized in early September is that it was coming soon. And so it was time for Mr. Combs to come to New York, which he did. And let me just point out one very important thing. The prosecutors are seizing on something that happened 8 years ago. You know, this video that we've all seen, and it's a bad video for Mr. Combs. And
says the indictment, Combs held freak-offs or sex performances where victims were drugged and coerced into sex acts.
He said so himself when he gave his apology. This is 8 years ago, and the prosecutors are talking about him bribing a hotel security worker. There was no criminal investigation. This was just a matter of personal embarrassment, because he and the person in the video were in the midst of a 10-year relationship that was difficult at times, that was toxic.
He's talking about Cassie.
At times, but it was mutually so. And this whole notion that Mr. Combs is forcing drugs on someone is just not.
He says it was toxic.
That was difficult at times, that was toxic at times, but it was mutually so. And this whole notion that Mr. Combs is forcing drugs on someone is just nonsensical, and it's going to prove to not be true.
Well, on that video, he initially denied the allegations when his then girlfriend, who is in that video, filed a lawsuit last fall. And we have that video. I should note, CNN was the first outlet to exclusively report on it. He denied that happened when she filed it in a complaint. And then...
Yeah, that video evidence was damning. That's what changed the court of public opinion in my eyes. I think Diddy being caught on camera in the hotel assaulting Cassie, you know, it really painted him in a bad light. But the lawyer here, which is his job to do so, he actually brings up a reason for that.
And when the video came out is when he apologized for it.
So
he brings up a defense for it, which is kind of interesting.
And then when the video came out is when he apologized for it.
So I wasn't his lawyer back then, so I don't, and I don't think he...
And I wouldn't have told him to apologize. That's what he was really saying.
I mean, I think the lawyers were the ones mostly making the denials. I think they were denying sex crimes. I mean, because at the end of the day, the gravamen of that civil complaint wasn't a misdemeanor assault, which is what you see on that video. Not minimizing it, but it's a misdemeanor assault. What the gravamen of the complaint was sex crimes, and he denied that, and he still does.
Well, and you're saying that this is all just about that one relationship, but when you read through the indictment, they say that there's not just one victim. They say there's multiple victims here today. And what I heard described was they said they have 50 witnesses or victims.
Yeah, I think it's 49 witnesses and one victim. I think if you broke it down, and I say that because count 2, which is the sex trafficking count, has victim number 1, and there is no victim number 2 anywhere in the indictment.
So you're saying that there are not other women, because what they were essentially arguing here is that he coerced and forced women into sex acts by using physical force, financial pressure, emotional abuse, and narcotics for what.
You know, that sounds very reminiscent of the Bill Cosby case, because there were so many people that were seen as victims that had come forward, but really there was only one that was actually going to court and was a victim. Is this a similar situation?
What they described as these freak-off sessions, they're saying that he self-described them as that.
Yeah, there's one victim in the indictment. The charging
But
document.
one victim does count, right?
No, of course, but I'm just not. It's not 50. I mean, what they did is a little too.
Okay, so it's a one victim RICO charge is what we're talking about here in this indictment. We're talking about specifically in New York. Now, there might be something that happens in another state or somewhere else, but as far as New York, the case that he was arrested for.
I mean, what they did is a little too cute. Is it's 50 witnesses or victims. Well, it's one victim. That's all that's in the indictment.
Our reporter who was in the courtroom today said that he appeared to have a stunned expression on his face. Was he surprised that he was arrested last night?
No, he definitely was not. I mean, I
Wasn't
told him
surprised.
myself in early September, you are going to be arrested soon, and you're going to be charged with racketeering, and you're going to be charged with sex trafficking. So come to New York. It wasn't a long conversation. He agreed. So we knew this was coming, and in fact, we offered that he would turn himself in.
So if there are these witnesses and victims, and as you're saying that you believe it's one victim and 49 witnesses who saw this behavior, that's pretty powerful, though, to have that many people who have, if they go to court and argue that they witnessed this behavior by your client.
Well,
what's
no,
your defense against that?
So my defense is very well established. I interviewed myself the different men who were being brought sort of into Mr. Combs and this.
Oh, this lawyer's a shark. He's getting out there. He said, "I'm gonna go ahead and interview myself, all the victims, all the witnesses rather." That's crazy.
Person's intimate situation. I've flown around the country. I've interviewed a large number of them. There's not the slightest inkling, according to the interviews that I've done, of anything that's coercive, non-consensual. Nobody was too drunk. Nobody was too high. These were adults in a relation. This is a 10-year relationship. We can't forget that. This is a 10-year relationship, and it was adults and consensual, and everybody who was there wanted to be there. So I feel very confident in our position.
You said you interviewed the men, but what about the women?
I haven't interviewed the woman. The woman's not available to me. She's presumably a grand jury witness, and we would not. We cannot try to interview a grand jury witness.
Okay, well, that answers the question there. Is Cassie going to testify? And obviously, yes. I believe he's referring to Cassie as the only victim, allegedly. But that's interesting, too, because now you've got to ask the question, if there's only one witness, only one victim, can Diddy and this lawyer get around that one victim? Makes it a lot easier if that's the case, and it's not just this huge group of people that are all saying the same thing.
And you don't think that there are any other women who are going to say that they were coerced into this, given drugs, and essentially as prosecutors were saying that that's what kept them compliant?
He paid well.
So there are a lot
sessions.
of women in these civil cases. There's been a mountain of civil cases ever since the civil case that was filed in November. I don't see them as victims in the indictment. That's my point.
Civil cases are not criminal cases. So what does that mean? If he beats this one, he is absolutely going to be released. He's going to walk free.
And so when you talk about that video of Cassie Ventura, that was his then girlfriend, in the video, I mean, just when you saw that, you said it's a bad video. It's pretty difficult to watch.
It is, no question. So let me tell you what happened.
Will that be used as evidence in court, do you think?
100%, 100%. So what I said in court today, and I'll say it again here, is the two of them were in a hotel. It was just the two of them in a hotel room. She found out that he was seeing someone else. She was going through his phone. She hit him in the head with his own phone. And then she walks into the hallway with two bags. One of the bags has all of his clothing taken from him, which is why he runs.
Hold up, that adds a new layer to this. They're trying to set it up that this was a toxic relationship. Could she have hit him first and taken his clothes as she was leaving, making her more of a perpetrator, making this retribution? It seems out of context that it's very one-sided, that it's abuse. But if in fact that was the case, then are they, in a drug-fueled toxic relationship? People on drugs do strange things like take your clothes and take your money, which I had heard about. There might have been some money involved, allegedly. That really does add a wrinkle to this. But that being said, he does in fact drag her back into the room, which might not support the claims that they're making here, but seems like they're building a defense against the fact that this video isn't 100% of the story.
Out in a towel. So this isn't her fleeing from one of these freak-offs. Why would she take his clothing? That's not what it is. And when the evidence comes out, this is going to be completely different than the government's portrayed it.
But on this video,
the evidence comes out, it's going to be completely different from what the defense is saying.
And when the evidence comes out, this is going to be completely different than the government's portrayed it.
But on this video, and I just want to show that again now, how do you defend against allegations that he hit, kicked, and dragged women when he's on video hitting, kicking, and dragging a woman?
Sure, he's not charged with hitting, kicking, and dragging a woman. He's charged with sex trafficking, and he didn't traffic anybody.
But he's charged with a conspiracy here where he was using physical abuse, emotional abuse, financial pressure, as prosecutors allege, to keep these women in his fold. Maybe just Cassie Ventura, but keeping these women in the fold.
Cassie Ventura lived by herself. She had her own house. She had a family. She had a career. And he was seeing another woman at the time. He wasn't around a lot. She could have done whatever she wanted to do. All of these allegations of, I was forced, I was coerced, I had to stay, are nonsense. And it's going to be.
That's interesting because he is Diddy. So, of course, he had probably multiple women. Plausible theory. Does that really rise to the level of this type of breakup, this type of conflict between the two of them? Definitely is a defense. Don't know exactly if it's going to stand up in court, but he raises a point.
Be proven to be so.
That video, in the indictment, it alleges that your client paid hotel staff $50,000 to make it disappear from the hotel surveillance system. Did he pay off the hotel staff?
Not that I know of. I know that's an allegation. I don't know that is true. What I was concerned about when I heard about this allegation is whether there was an allegation that there was some sort of law enforcement investigation pending, because then that would be a crime. But there was none, and so this is not a crime.
You said you're portraying this as adults who were at these events that wanted to be, I shouldn't even call them events, that's not certainly how anyone else would label it.
Freak offs.
That they wanted to be there. But they also allege that they were recorded and essentially used as blackmail. Is that not true?
That's not true. That's not true.
How can you prove that when they have is that not true?
That's not true.
That would be illegal. Recording somebody without their consent is definitely illegal. But if there's some type of, signage or waiver that was signed, NDA, maybe they could.
Not true.
How can you prove that when they have electronic evidence that, as they argue, over 90 cell phones, laptops, iCloud storage accounts, 30 electronic and storage devices, hard drives, thumb drives.
Yeah.
You're not worried about that?
Nope, because if they had it, they would have put it in the indictment. And it's not.
Wow. It's not in the indictment, is what he's saying. So all this alleged evidence against him isn't in the indictment. If it isn't in the indictment, is it admissible? That's interesting. This is why you pay the big bucks for these good lawyers, man, because they will figure out a way. And you got to think about that. This has been going on for, I guess, Diddy's whole career. He probably had some form of a freak off or whatever. And though there's been complaints about Diddy, there's never been any that have risen to the level of him being arrested, possibly facing prison. That makes you think, like, in these 30 years that he's been around, why haven't we gotten to this point before? This criminal enterprise that he built, was this just a recent occurrence since 2016, something he wanted to do? Or was this just a lifestyle of, what do you call himself, a mogul? a rap impresario mogul?
On the indictment.
When it comes to your client's credibility, I think people will look at what he said last fall. And it's not just his attorneys.
Apology.
I mean, he pays those attorneys. They're speaking on his behalf. They're the ones calling her claims baseless and ridiculous. And when you read the indictment today, they line up with what she alleged in that lawsuit last fall.
If the claim is that he had unwanted sex with her, that claim is baseless. And it will be proven to be baseless when we have a trial.
But the claim is obviously the conspiracy, the racketeering. It's much larger than just that, obviously, as you know.
It is, but the government wants it to be. But count 2, which is the sex trafficking count, relates to one person and one person alone. All of this talk of dozens of victims and 50 witnesses, if they had that, if they really had it, it would be in the indictment.
So this is Diddy's lawyer, Mark Agnofilo, and he believes that they have a case. He believes that they can beat the case. This is interesting. This, provides a new wrinkle in what was going on. It definitely provides some doubt, of course. There's also been a story reported that says Diddy was trying to buy CBS and MTV before the allegations. That's always been the claim about why they really did come down on Bill Cosby. Is it possible that this is another thing? That is actually a fact, that Diddy was trying to put together a group to raise $5 to $10 billion for an offer for Paramount. Parent company is CBS, MTV, Nickelodeon, Paramount Pictures, one of the biggest movie studios in the world. That is a dream of Diddy's. As a media person, this is something that he wants, but it seems that every time one of these black billionaires or, millionaires tries to get in line to purchase, because it was just sold, Paramount was just sold to Skydance Media for $8 billion. So if he could have raised that $10 billion, he could have equally put in a bid for this. But every time somebody tries to make a move like that, these charges come up. Are they connected? Diddy's got a hungry lawyer, and the lawyer thinks he's going to beat this case. So we shall see. Anyway, let me know what you think about it in the comments. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification for all uploads. If you want to watch more, please watch one of these videos down below. Make sure you sign up for the newsletter. That way you can stay up to date on all things Faucette Media. The link is in the description. This is Faucette Media.